Discover the incredible truth. 7 surprising ways God's plan can transform your life forever. In Maplewood, Illinois, Sarah's life felt like a relentless storm. Days blurred into nights with an endless cycle of worry and responsibility. She dragged herself to the law firm each morning, the haunting weight of unpaid bills pressing down on her. Mark had left them for a shimmering life in the city, abandoning not just her but their entire family. Each encounter with a familiar face stung, whispering judgments that cut deeper than any blade. Did they see her as the woman who couldn't hold onto her husband? The mother who struggled to feed her children? Each passing day cast shadows over her fading dreams. Emma and Jake needed her, yet she felt like a ghost flitting through a life laced with anxiety. At work, stacks of files piled high, each requiring her attention, each a reminder of her fight for survival. Anxiety seeped into her bones as she struggled to juggle clients' needs and her determination to be the best mother. The relentless hum of the office buzzed in her ears, each ring of the phone like a ticking clock reminding her of her failures. But then there was the diary, her grandmother's diary, an object filled with love and heartbreaking secrets, a remnant of hope in the chaos. Within its pages, she stumbled across mention of a neglected family property, once brimming with potential. It ignited a flicker of determination inside her. Reclaiming it meant confronting her memories, the gnawing feeling that she should be more than just single mother or abandoned spouse. That land could be a symbol of resilience, a chance to rebuild their future, a future away from the desperate chase of simply surviving. Yet, the whispers of her former acquaintances echoed in her mind. Can she really do it? Doubt twisted and curled around her heart like a vine, squeezing tighter with every thought. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As she thought about the community that filled the house of her childhood, visions of the upcoming town hall meeting sent her spiraling. Would they ridicule her aspirations? A developer loomed, eager to supplant her family's legacy with concrete luxury. She felt their skepticism before it crystallized into words. The thought of standing there, revealing her plan to a room full of onlookers with crossed arms and raised eyebrows, clutched her throat in a vice. She couldn't just bring up the property. She had to defend it from outsiders seeking to erase her family's history while proving to her children that their mother was not a quitter, that they should be proud of where they came from. But how could she convince them? Outrageous, she thought, her racing mind failing to find clarity amid the chaos swirling inside her. Each moment before the town hall felt like a comet hurtling toward Earth, ready to explode, pushing her closer to the edge of that terrifying leap. Would they see her strength or her desperation? As she clutched the diary tighter, memories of her grandmother's voice flooded her mind. You hold your past in your hands, but it's also your future. Would she dare step out of the shadows? Time ticked away as Sarah prepared to take the stage, and with it came the terrifying realization that both her family's legacy and her own self-worth hung in the balance. The rustling of papers echoed in the quiet of her office, a sound that had once felt like a trusted friend now transforming into a relentless reminder of her impending confrontation. Sarah stacked the last of the files, her mind racing, the weight of expectation suffocating her. Each file was a client's case, a distant voice crying out for justice, yet she could hear nothing but the mocking laughter of her own insecurities. With each case dismissed, she feared she was dismissing her own resolve. Taking a deep breath, she allowed herself a moment of clarity. The diary lay open on her desk, a promise wrapped in pages yellowed by time. Her grandmother's elegant script blurred as her thoughts swirled. You hold your past in your hands. It reminded her, wisdom echoing through the chaos. The passage hinted at an unwavering spirit, a desire to reclaim what was lost. And with a shuddering heart, Sarah yearned to embody that spirit. Perhaps it was time to shift from the shadows of past failures and rediscover her strength. As the clock approached the hour of the town hall meeting, butterflies of anxiety fluttered in her stomach, but an emerging determination began to push against them. What if she stepped beyond the fear? What if she transformed those insecurities into a declaration, a promise not just to Emma and Jake, who needed more than a mother surviving the daily grind, but to herself, the woman who once dreamed of a brighter future? The streets of Maplewood held secrets, nostalgia, and remnants of her childhood. She had spent countless summers running through the fields, then long enjoyed while visiting the family property, now cocooned in uncertainty. It was here, immersed in nature, she used to feel limitless. Could she reclaim that feeling? Was it possible to breathe life back into the land that now lay dormant? Stepping into the quaint town hall, she was immediately enveloped by the murmurs of gossip, a chorus that seemed to mock her resolve. Each familiar face spoke volumes, their eyes devoid of belief. She imagined their thoughts as phantoms of doubt whispering, "What is she thinking? Why would she even try?" As she took her place at the podium, the air grew thick with expectations, the room falling silent. Her mouth was dry, and she could almost taste the judgment lingering in the atmosphere. But then she remembered the diary, the legacy of strength nestled within. Like a spark igniting kindling, energy surged through her. Her voice steadied as she spoke about the property, unveiling visions of a community garden, a gathering place where children could laugh and play, where families could seed their roots in the soil of their heritage. Pausing, she scanned the faces in front of her, daring to connect with them eye to eye. The few skeptics shifted in their seats, and for the first time, she felt an ember of possibility flicker within. This wasn't merely about land. It was a chance to redefine her identity, to transform abandoned into resilient. She began sharing snippets of her family's history with fervor, illuminating the shadows of her past. Perhaps some could see it now, the fight within her. Perhaps it sparked curiosity rather than ridicule. As she reached the climax of her speech, she felt an undeniable swell of courage. This was who she was meant to become, not just a mother fighting alone, but a beacon of resilience demanding a place for her family's story. But as she concluded, an unexpected voice from the audience rose, slicing through her newfound confidence. "And who do you think you are to challenge the plans we have for this town?" The words hung heavy in the air, a bell tolling her uprising back into doubt. Sarah took a shaky breath, the moment teetering on a knife's edge. Would she retreat into silence or seize this chance to face her true oppressor? The stakes had just escalated, and within that uncertainty lay an opportunity that could redefine everything. Now the moment had come to face her own demons. Sarah's heart raced as she processed the challenge thrown her way. The weight of it bore down like a thundercloud ready to unleash. The voice belonged to Mark, a prominent figure in the town circle, known for his confidence and cunning. He specialized in intellectually besting opponents, something she had seen numerous times before. Yet, an unexpected resolve flickered within her, overriding the instinct to retreat. "What do you mean by that?" Her response came out stronger than she anticipated, a raw energy coursing through her veins. The room's attention shifted, eyes darting between the two of them, the tension palpable. Mark leaned forward, piercing eyes scanning the audience as if searching for allies. "You speak of dreams, Sarah, but dreams don't pay the bills. The town has plans, established names with connections. What do you have? Nostalgia?" His words dripped with condescension, yet they stirred something in Sarah. Holding onto her last remains of composure, she turned Mark's words over in her mind. Nostalgia alone wasn't going to rally support, but passion could ignite that spark of interest. "I have history, and that has value," she asserted, her voice rising. "The stories woven through this land shape who we are as a community. My vision for the garden goes beyond dreams. It is the bridge that connects us to our roots. It's about embracing our identity while paving a path towards growth." The crowd remained silent, their expressions an enigmatic mix of intrigue and skepticism. Some frowned, considering the implications of what she was proposing, while others seemed to lean closer, curiosity piqued. Feeling that energy shift, Sarah pressed on. Her grandmother's words echoed in her mind. You hold your past in your hands. She didn't just possess any history. She held a powerful, living connection to her family's legacy and the dreams they once nurtured for this land. She scanned the crowd again, selecting familiar faces, some kind, others disinterested. Drawing in a breath, she continued with fervor. There are children in this town who deserve open spaces to create their own memories. She passionately illustrated paths to explore, blossoms to plant. These are the foundations of community spirit. If we reject our past, we lose the chance to build a rich future. Yet, even as she spoke, doubt crept in. Would her community rally around the nostalgia she offered, or would they side with Mark's cold pragmatism? She could feel his gaze on her like a hawk spotting weakness. The mastery of debate that he wielded haunted her thoughts, clamoring against her defiance. Then why not present a budget? A solid plan? Mark's counter struck like a whip, falling around her like a heavy blanket. The audience's eyes flitted back to him, drawn by his authoritative tone. You can't win with just heartstrings. The town needs a sound proposal, not an emotional plea. It struck her suddenly, a revelation that turned the tide. They needed a plan that recognized the spirit of the past while framing it in a measurable context. You may be right, but what if I could find a way to do both? A plan that honors our heritage while means for the future. This time, Sarah didn't wait for their reaction. She was already mapping out her vision in her mind, connecting each point. Grants, volunteers, sustainable practices. She could use her knowledge and training, not only as a mother but as a professional ready to re-engage. What if I gather support alongside a solid proposal? Work to combine our dreams with practicality? Her voice was steady now, more grounded and authoritative than ever. The murmurs began again, a tide of whispers washing over her, a reality she dared to step into. As she glanced at the audience, it was as if a part of her had awakened from its slumber, brimming with possibility, offering her a glimpse of the woman she might become. Mark's expression shifted, uncertainty clouding his initial bravado. You think that's wise? Absolutely. I'm not just a voice from the past. I'm ready to take charge of the future. A slight tremor of vulnerability colored her words, but confidence coursed through her. This was no longer simply an emotional response. It was a proposal that could revolutionize her town's connection to its history. But just as hope began to swell, a deeper fear momentarily surfaced. If she committed further, it would lay bare her vulnerabilities even more in the following meetings. Yet the moment demanded it. Would they support her, or would the shadow of doubt linger, awaiting her misstep? As she prepared to leave the podium, clinging to this newfound momentum, Sarah realized her battle was only beginning. Now the moment had come to face not only the town but herself. What was she willing to risk, and could her fragile bravery withstand the trials ahead? The days that followed felt compressed into a blur of late nights and early mornings as Sarah wrestled with the stakes of her newfound commitment. The whispers of the crowd haunted her, neither the cheers of approval nor the skeptical mutterings fading from her mind. Instead, they fueled an anxiety that simmered beneath her surface, tightening her chest like a vice. She had exposed herself in that moment, daring to voice what so many in the room had merely thought. But now, what would she do with her words? Armed with a notebook filled with ideas and an invigorated sense of purpose, Sarah rolled up her sleeves the next morning, ready to combine nostalgia with practicality. She compartmentalized her emotions, allowing the redemption of her history to spark an actionable plan. Lists formed, potential donors, local partnerships, community interests. It's as if every inch of her background surged forward as a tool for her new initiative. Yet, amidst this fire for her ambitions, something else nagged at her, a nagging echo of doubt, the essence of which reminded her of Mark. He was a master of policy discussions. A single look back at him during the meeting shook her confidence, making her feel small in his shadow. He represented the practicality of the future but seemed completely devoid of the passion she sought to evoke. Her resolve solidified. She needed to find a way to meld their worlds, marshaling genuine interest while satisfying the need for a grounded approach. The first step was to establish legitimacy. Sarah reached out to local government officials, asking to schedule meetings to discuss a proposal. Each call felt monumental, but with every exchange, she sensed her confidence swelling. With every interaction, she practiced presenting her vision, focusing on the potential of what lay beneath the surface, juxtaposed against a stark blueprint laced with numbers and plans. The response was stronger than she presumed. Word spread. Some began to show genuine interest in joining her effort. But then, of course, there was Mark. His presence loomed like a storm cloud, ready to shake her foundation. Each time she visualized pitching her project, the image of his skeptical grin twisted her dreams. She had to confront the looming challenge he represented, not just in opposing opinion, but as an embodiment of self-doubt. Sarah. A voice broke her reverie, startling her from her thoughts. It was Elena, a former classmate, now working for one of the larger agricultural organizations in town. I heard you're working on a community garden. That's brilliant. I'd love to help. The idea caught fire before her. Elena had insight into sustainable practices and access to resources on grants that could kickstart her plans. Can we meet tomorrow? Sarah impulsively responded, energized by the unexpected ally. Absolutely. Let us find that budget and plan. Elena smiled warmly and left Sarah fluttering inside with a sense of relief and support. She felt unlocked, suddenly aware of her ability to forge connections in ways she hadn't anticipated. As she headed home, a flicker of doubt nagged at her. She wondered if she had overreached, seeking assistance and igniting a community effort while still navigating Mark's sharp tongue. Would they see it as a collective project, or merely a desperate reach? No longer able to quell her reservations, she whispered a promise to herself. Focus on what you can control. That night, she sat down with her notebook, frantically jotting ideas and ultimately transforming raw aspirations into refined plans. The deeper she delved into the proposal elements, the more she began to understand the delicate balance needed for the project's success. Research led her to discover which local grants aligned with her vision and where they intersected with the sustainability initiatives Elena had mentioned. Energy surged through her, turning her fear into actionable strategies. Yet, looming over her was an emerging question. Was this process merely an illusion of control, disguising her deeper uncertainties? The prospect of vulnerability remained. If she fell short, how would she reconcile her ambitions with her growing fear of rejection? Sarah inhaled deeply, grappling with the pressures building within her. One step at a time, she reminded herself, determined to stand her ground. Yet another thought left her lingering. Was she ready to face Mark once more? The unwavering push toward her dreams glimmered ahead, yet shadows whispered what remained unresolved. The time had come to confront the ultimate reflection of her fears. Could she emerge empowered from facing Mark again, or would she find her burgeoning resolve dismantled? The next day dawned with a haze of anxiety settling heavily in Sarah's chest. She had spent hours preparing for her meeting with Elena, meticulously reviewing her notes and pacing around her living room like a caged animal. She inhaled to steady her pounding heart. This was a new chapter, full of opportunities and the uncomfortable nature of vulnerability. Yet, Mark's shadow hovered ominously in her mind. As she took her seat at their chosen cafe, the smell of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air, but it did little to calm her nerves. She looked up as Elena arrived, her warm smile breaking through the tension that knotted Sarah's stomach. Sorry I'm late, Elena chirped, settling in with a notebook of her own, brimming with notes. Not a problem at all, Sarah managed, forcing a smile as she fiddled with her pen. Their conversation flowed easily, at first shared laughter over early college memories and mutual acquaintances, but soon turned serious as they shifted focus to the project. Sarah felt the weight of the moment, the necessity of her ideas and the implications they held. Elena, I want this to reflect our community's values while being functional, Sarah said, her voice steady with conviction. It needs to be sustainable, but it also has to resonate with people personally. I completely agree. A garden isn't just a plot of land. It's a gathering space, a teaching moment, a way to engage youth, Elena responded, her enthusiasm infectious. They dived deep into discussions about crop selection, local permaculture practices, and potential workshops. As they brainstormed, a slippery thought crept into Sarah's mind, one that had started to take root as soon as Elena suggested reaching out to the school district about educational programs. What if they could incorporate local history alongside their gardening efforts? What if they could connect students with the land in a way she had never thought possible? It was one more step towards a vision that had begun to feel like concrete instead of vapor. But lurking was a critical part in this pivotal moment. How would she present this idea when Mark inevitably crossed paths with her efforts? The image of him, arms crossed and eyebrow raised, sent a jolt of trepidation through her spine. Sarah had to navigate this challenge. She couldn't allow herself to be undermined by doubt. Her aspirations deserved clarity and confidence. As the meeting drew to a close, they shared strategies regarding grant applications and potential fundraising avenues. Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose. Each step they took together seemed to clarify the fog of uncertainty that had encumbered her. Yet doubt clawed back into her mind when Elena's demeanor shifted. She leaned closer, her tone softening. About Mark, have you thought about how you'll handle him when the time comes for feedback, especially given his reputation in the community? That's when the raw truth struck Sarah. Mark wasn't just an opponent. He represented everything she feared, the embodiment of her struggle to be taken seriously. I haven't but I think I need to. Her voice wavered, realizing this confrontation was both a personal and professional battlefield. How do you plan to tackle it? Elena asked, searching Sarah's eyes. I think I'll need to approach him directly, lay out what I've built so far and seek his input. Could either break me or build me, Sarah said, her resolve hardening like steel. That night, sitting alone with her notebook, Sarah scribbled down goals and potential outcomes of that impending discussion with Mark. It was a crossroad of sorts. She could either let fear dictate her next move or confront her insecurities head-on. Dusk settled quietly around her, broken only by the sound of her pen against paper, a rhythmic reminder of the ambitious road ahead. She knew that the time had come to take ownership of her narrative, the catalyst for transformation stemming from that pivotal moment of confrontation with Mark. As a final flourish, the last lines she wrote captured her anxiety and determination in equal measure. This is more than a garden, Sarah. It's your legacy. You must fight for it. An electric surge of anticipation coursed through her. Yet, beneath it, a chilling realization loomed. What if this encounter escalated beyond simple critique? What if Mark, with his penetrating gaze and icy logic, would tear down everything she hoped to build? She drew a deep breath, a mixture of fear and grit swirling in her chest as she whispered into the silence. You can do this, Sarah. With her heart pounding, she closed her notebook, binding her thoughts in ink. The next step was clear, but it would demand everything. The confrontation would come soon, and uncertainty loomed around the corner. Could she truly stand her ground against Mark? Or would his doubt eclipse her resolve? The following morning, Sarah awoke with the weight of her impending meeting pressing down on her chest like a heavy stone. She faced the mirror as she brushed her hair, searching for strength in the reflection. The dark circles under her eyes were the battle scars of sleepless nights spent mapping out potential dialogues with Mark. Today would not be just another day. It was the day she would confront her fears, not just the specter of Mark, but the self-doubt that had shadowed her for too long. After a quick breakfast, she slipped into a crisp blazer, something that had always made her feel professional and confident. As she looked in the mirror again, she whispered, "You belong here," a mantra she hoped would drown out the anxious thoughts swirling in her mind. Arriving at the community center, the familiar scent of wood and paint mingled in the air, but today they felt different. Instead of being a space of comfort and creativity, they were the battleground on which she would stand firm. She took a deep breath and scanned the room, spotting Mark seated at the far end, his posture composed yet intimidating. The way he carried himself radiated authority, a backdrop that would only amplify her insecurities if she let it. Determined to center herself, Sarah visualized the gathering space she and Elena had envisioned. The laughter of children learning to garden, the vibrant blooms of the flowers they discussed, and the diversity of crops representing their community all grounded her in purpose. As she approached the table, Mark looked up, his expression unreadable. "Sarah," he said, his tone cool and clipped. "What's this about?" "Thank you for meeting with me, Mark." Her voice trembled slightly at first but steadied. "I wanted to share my proposal for the community garden and get your feedback." His eyebrow arched, skepticism dripping from every syllable. "You do know I've been in this community much longer than you. So, let us see what you've got." She inhaled sharply, steeling herself against the barrage of doubt she sensed spiraling from him. "The garden is meant to foster educational programs with the school district, integrating local history and sustainability." Her words flowed as she outlined her vision, detailing each aspect with fervor, trying to draw him into her enthusiasm. However, Mark's expression remained non-committal, his fingers steepled as he listened. She struck a nerve with one detail, describing how gardens could bond community members. He spoke up, his voice even but laced with critique. "And how do you expect to keep this garden alive once it's had its opening? Do you really believe the community will rally behind something like this?" A wave of frustration flooded Sarah. "I believe if we create something that resonates with people, we can maintain their interest. I'm not just asking for your approval, but for you to see the potential in this project." As soon as the words left her mouth, she felt the exhilaration of vulnerability rush through her. Confronting him had elicited a surge of strength she hadn't anticipated. Mark's gaze locked onto her, measuring and piercing. "And when it fails, I will not hesitate to say I told you so," he replied coolly. The tension in the room thickened, and yet, Sarah felt an unexpected calm wash over her. "Then I need your input to ensure it doesn't tea." The courage she summoned surprised even her. "What can we do to make it stronger, to assure its sustainability?" Constructive feedback means more than negativity. Mark paused, his demeanor shifting slightly, as if he was contemplating her newfound assertiveness. She could sense a potential shift. Perhaps this wasn't just about winning him over, but about challenging the status quo, his and the project's. She leaned forward, ready to engage more deeply, to stand firm against the possibility of failure. "Mark, I'm done being the underdog in my own narrative." The clarity in her voice prompted a shift within herself. For the first time, she was ready to own her authority. In that moment, she felt a profound realization settle deep within. Her true leadership stemmed not just from knowledge or tenure, but from the ability to harness vulnerability as a strength. As the conversation continued, she could almost see the walls beginning to crack. But amidst her growing confidence, a flash of uncertainty danced in Sarah's mind. Would Mark ever fully accept her vision? Was he capable of seeing her as more than an ambitious novice? The meeting wasn't over, but the ground beneath her was shifting. Change was brewing, but would it be enough to silence the doubts that had haunted her for too long? What lay ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Her journey had only just begun, and the next confrontation with Mark would be pivotal. As the conversation deepened, Sarah could feel the currents of uncertainty churn beneath her surface. Mark's skepticism hung heavily in the air, but rather than retreating, she resolved to lean into it. Each comment he made became an opportunity for her to reaffirm her commitment. She sharpened her focus, recognizing that in challenging moments lay the seeds of transformation. "Imagine for a second," she proposed, "what these interactions could do for kids. They're eager to learn, and connecting them to hands-on experiences in a garden might ignite their passion for nature and responsibility." Her voice grew firmer, bolstered by the clarity of her vision. Mark shifted slightly, still rigid overall but now somewhat intrigued. "That's your argument for engagement? Just ignition? You'll need more than mere enthusiasm." Staring back at him, Sarah felt an electric jolt. He was right, enthusiasm was not enough. Her mind raced, accessing those late-night brainstorming sessions, the lists of statistics and case studies they'd unearthed about youth educational programs with community gardens. "And it's not just about enthusiasm." She steadied her posture, feeling more grounded. "Communities with active gardens report better educational outcomes and greater cooperation amongst their members. There's actual data supporting these claims. She detailed studies showcasing increased academic performance and enhanced social responsibility driven by similar initiatives. As she spoke, she realized she was no longer merely defending her project, but articulating her belief in the power of change that she could and would create. People need a reason to believe, she continued, shifting tactics. It's my job to give them that. But motivation won't come from empty promises. It requires showing them tangible benefits. She could see him fighting against her momentum, yet she pressed on. This garden isn't just a place for plants. It's an opportunity for organic community engagement and support. For a split second, the hard veneer of Mark's skepticism cracked, and she glimpsed something deeper beneath it, a flicker of intrigue. Well, if you really believe in its potential, let us say I'm willing to assist in this process. But I need specifics. What's the realistic plan post-opening? His tone was authoritative yet subdued, almost as if he was testing her resolve. Great, she responded, mustering confidence to match her enthusiasm. We can host monthly workshops that not only teach gardening but also incorporate elements like nutrition education, local history, and biology. We can have local chefs demonstrate healthy recipes using the produce grown, create a farm-to-table experience that helps reconnect individuals with their food. The words were rolling off her tongue with an enthusiasm she'd not expected to find. Mark began to jot down notes. He sat straighter, and for a brief moment, engaged Sarah's vision with his mind instead of skepticism. And how do we maintain momentum? Community interest wanes quickly if we don't keep them engaged. Absolutely. We start with small, achievable goals, planting seasonal crops, hosting school visits, organizing community voice meetings to adapt our plans according to their interests. She articulated, excitement coursing through her as a plan began to crystallize. In that steadily intensifying exchange of ideas, doubts receded, replaced by her own strategic thinking. Mark's belief in the garden, or even just her, had begun to shift. Sarah recognized an unexpected sense of belonging emerging within her. She was not just a novice pushing for recognition. She was a driver of change. But despite this mini-victory, tension lingered beneath the surface. Far from convinced, Mark's eyes bore into hers as if searching for signs of inadequacy. You speak passionately, Sarah, but passion alone won't ensure sustainability. You need to show me you're capable of leading this project if you expect others to follow. Stunned by his bluntness, team player instincts flared. This was his final challenge to her. Then I will, she declared as a fierce determination enveloped her. I'll prepare a detailed action plan for next week, complete with timelines, anticipated outcomes, and how we can address challenges together. It felt right to assert himself into the details of her undertaking, a display of commitment. The meeting drew to a close with renewed energy as Mark stood to meet her gaze directly. Let us see what you can deliver, Sarah. The challenge has been set. As she exited, her heart raced, a mix of trepidation and newfound belonging coursed through her. The next week would not only define this project but would cement her position in Mark's eyes and her own narrative. Back in her car, Sarah sat momentarily stunned, wrestling with the gravity of her tasks ahead. Yet excitement flared. No longer the timid newcomer, she was ready to be the architect of her vision. But amidst this determination, shadows of doubt whispered, what if the next plan didn't rise to scrutiny? What if her efforts fell short? The inevitable confrontation loomed on the horizon, and the stakes had never felt higher. The seeds of transformation were sown, but could she cultivate them into something sustainable? The answer was approaching fast, and she had just set her course. The next morning dawned, streaked with the promise of possibility. Yet Sarah found herself staring at her cluttered kitchen table, an inspiring reprieve suddenly feeling overwhelming. The massive scope of the action plan loomed before her like an insurmountable wall, and a tide of anxiety crashed against her confidence. Each element she had envisioned yesterday seemed frail, almost childish, in the harsh light of a new day. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to abandon the spiral of doubt. This was not the time to surrender to insecurity. It was a moment to harness her newfound determination. Leaning over her notepad, She began to break down her responsibilities into manageable tasks, focusing on clarity and specificity. It was crucial to establish a timeline, so she divided her plan into phases: initial setup, community outreach, educational development, and continued engagement. This methodical approach allowed a sliver of comfort to seep into her unsettled mind. But each segment she dissected also unearthed deeper questions. Who could she roster to help with each phase? Would her enthusiasm be enough to draw in volunteers willing to lend their hands? Would the community genuinely embrace her ideas? Or would she face the same skepticism that had shadowed her discussions with Mark? She found herself repeatedly jotting down names: willing friends, reliable colleagues, members of the community she had met during previous volunteer efforts. Each entry represented an anchor she hoped would steady an ocean of uncertainty. Yet with each name came the flickering ghost of self-doubt. What if they said no? What if she couldn't inspire them as she'd hoped? As the hours passed, a sense of urgency pushed her to refine her objectives. She spent hours hunched over her laptop, weaving statistical data into her narrative, pulling case studies into a cohesive argument. After all, if she hoped to make this garden a reality, she needed to articulate its potential impact not just to Mark but to anyone who might question her vision. In the midst of the literature, a moment of revelation struck her. It wasn't merely about listing facts and numbers. It was about storytelling. She needed to craft a narrative that connected the heart of the project with the minds of her audience. As someone who had often shied away from being the center of attention, Sarah began to see that this was her opportunity to forge a new identity, to harness her passion for gardening and education into a compelling story that brought people along. The garden as a symbol of growth, responsibility, and change. With each word, she felt the tight grip of self-doubt loosening. She began to draft a presentation that showcased not just statistics but also ambitions, unveiling the heart behind her endeavor. Her stories became a bridge, inviting others to walk alongside her in nurturing these budding aspirations. By the time she wrapped up her presentation, the thrill of having created something substantial coursed through her. The experience had catalyzed an old desire within her, to foster connections, to narrate a vision solid enough to inspire. Yet, she still needed to confront Mark again. Would he recognize her evolution? Would he be able to see past his initial skepticism? The evening approached with shadows lengthening across her workspace as the timer on her phone gleefully beeped, reminding her it was nearly time for the meeting. The anticipation mixed with anxiety coiled tightly in her stomach. This meeting would expose the transformative work she had done, but also the lingering question: was she enough? Setting off for the office, she reflected on those names she had written down, those individuals whose presence could amplify her vision. The looming confrontation with Mark felt charged with potential, a chance to not only defend her ideas but to assert herself in a way she had never done before. As she pulled into the parking lot, Sarah realized that this was more than just about the garden. It was her stake in the ground, solidifying her new identity in a world that always seemed to view her as an apprentice. With her heart racing, she stepped out of the car, determination coursing through her. She would present her vision with clarity and conviction, but deep within, the question echoed anew. What if Mark's reaction held more weight than she had prepared for? The time had come for Sarah to face her transformation, but would it be enough to foster belief in others? As Sarah entered the building, a wave of familiarity washed over her. The scent of polished wood and the distant hum of fluorescent lights felt like an old song, one she thought she had forgotten. Yet today, there was a different energy humming within her. She straightened her back and took a moment to steady her breath, reciting in her mind the key points of her presentation as she walked toward the conference room. This wasn't merely a formal pitch, it was a declaration of self. The faces of her colleagues greeted her, some curious, others indifferent. Mark was among them, seated at the head of the long table, his expression unreadable. Sarah's heartbeat quickened. This was her moment of truth. She stood at the door, heart thudding in her chest, weighing the countless conversations from the past, every dismissal, every slight, and choosing to silence that echo for now. Taking her place at the front, she locked eyes with Mark. His presence loomed large yet faded beneath the purpose she felt building inside her. She began her presentation, weaving the narrative of the garden, not just as a project but as a vision that intertwined dreams and potential growth. As she spoke, something remarkable happened. The words flowed with a strength that shocked her. She illustrated the power of community connection through stories, her passion pouring out, each detail igniting the room. The data struck chords, resonating with shared values and aspirations. She saw nods of agreement and even flickers of interest on faces she once thought were stone. But doubt still slithered in. What if they were humoring her? Her gaze darted to Mark, searching for approval. Would he belittle her enthusiasm as he had before? A fleeting moment of uncertainty stilled her breath. But then she remembered those names she had written down. Those anchors, her collaborators. As she unveiled the potential impact, she noticed Mark's brows furrowing, his calculating nature assessing her every move. With each figure she cited regarding community engagement and educational benefits, she sensed him weighing her conviction against his well-worn skepticism. When she completed her presentation, a nervous silence hung thick in the air. Sarah's heart raced, her palms dampened by the weight of anticipation. "So, what do you think?" she finally asked, her voice unwavering yet tinged with vulnerability. Mark's response did not immediately come. Instead, he leaned back, crossing his arms, and scrutinized her. In that moment, silence morphed into a palpable tension, thick and stifling. The energy shifted as her colleagues exchanged glances, uncertainty weaving through the room like a storm cloud. Then, unexpectedly, Mark spoke. "You've put together quite an argument here, Sarah. But I still wonder where's the proof that anyone will actually get involved? You need a solid foundation of commitment, not just hope." His words felt like a sharp slap, but she quickly steadied herself. In his critique, she recognized her own lingering fears. What if they did not get involved? What if she could not rally them? Taking a deep breath, she chose to confront his skepticism. "I understand your concerns, but I believe in the power of creating something together. This isn't just a project. It's about building a community, a place that can inspire change. I'm committed to not only invite involvement but to ensure follow-through. I can engage those willing to join me." Mark's eyes met hers, and for the first time, she felt a shift in his expression, the hint of a raised brow, a glimmer of thoughtfulness. She had influenced him to question his own cynicism, and that felt like a small victory. Yet, as she finished, an unsettling thought coiled tightly within her. What if her efforts weren't enough? Would she be able to galvanize the support she envisioned, sustaining this newfound purpose amidst doubt? The meeting dismissed, colleagues murmured among themselves, some intrigued, others updated with indifference. As Sarah gathered her notes, she stole another glance at Mark, who had shifted to his phone. She realized, at that moment, she had truly begun to stake her claim, forging ahead regardless of skepticism and stepping into her own identity. But would her courage be enough to transcend the barriers that still lay ahead? Would she find the allies she sought? Or would this be yet another solitary expedition into uncertainty? As she packed up to leave, she felt her resolve harden. Her journey had only just begun. The next step was proving her engagement strategy. But how would she transform her vision from mere concept to collective reality? The seed of doubt sprouted yet again, taunting her. She was ready to foster involvement, yes, but at what cost to her own definition of success? In the following days, Sarah's determination blossomed. Each moment she spent refining her proposal instilled her with purpose. Her vision was coming to life. She multiplied her efforts, diving into community engagement workshops. The turn of events invigorated her spirit. She used her grandmother's wisdom to recall the heart of family stories, crafting them into compelling narratives to rally support. With each workshop, she leaned into local history, sharing anecdotes and vivid memories that tethered people to the land. The old rhythms of Maplewood whispered through those stories, igniting recognition and warmth among her audience. It was here she began to connect the project beyond growth. It was about belonging, a tapestry interwoven with individual threads of experience, urging her neighbors to don their gardening gloves to create a shared legacy. Gradually, she gathered volunteers, Her initial fear of rejection dissipated as she reached out to those she had previously excluded from the narrative. Together with Elena, they crafted simple flyers highlighting the garden's potential along with community events like planting days and educational programs, a call to action resonating deep within the hearts of the people. Not once did she let Marquez's skepticism define her engagement strategy. Instead, it fueled her resolve. Sarah recognized that she needed to be multidimensional to temper enthusiasm with tangible results. As her ensemble of volunteers grew, so did her confidence and her sense of belonging within the community, rooting her in a narrative of resilience. The day of the first community planting event transformed the parking lot of the community center into a vibrant patchwork of colors and laughter. Friends, neighbors, and families arrived ready to dig, plant, and share in the collective joy of creation. The initial nerves of whether anyone would show up melted away under the warmth of available conversations and budding friendships, reinvigorating the spirit of Maplewood. As the hours rolled on, Sarah moved among the volunteers, their enthusiasm infectious. She witnessed newfound connections forming. Laughter erupted among families, lessons were imparted between generations, and a vision of the garden began to evolve before her eyes. Sarah felt momentum propel in the air, lifting her spirits. When Mark appeared unexpectedly, initially just an observer, she braced herself, yet this time, armed with a smile of resolve rather than fear. "I see you're here. How do you feel about what is happening?" she greeted, noticing the small crowd he'd drawn. "A gathering space is indeed more captivating than I anticipated," he admitted begrudgingly, his eyes surveying the energy. However, she wasn't prepared for the flicker of intrigue she saw behind his stoic facade. "That's only the beginning," Sarah offered confidently, an anchor of pride holding her in place. "We're opening a dialogue on how we can sustain this momentum. We love your thoughts, they matter if we're to implement this long-term." Mark looked surprised, and in that moment Sarah saw an opportunity. For the first time, she realized he might not just be an adversary but a potential partner. She could leverage their differences, sending ripples of engagement throughout every discussion. As the sun began to set, illuminating the garden's initial blooms, Sarah felt an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. An undeniable transformation had emerged within her. She was no longer just a woman grappling with self-doubt. Instead, she had risen fiercely, conquering the insecurities that clung to her like childhood shadows. Weeks turned into months, and with them the garden flourished. Her plan had evolved into a living entity, a hub for community learning and gathering that invigorated the hearts and minds of Maplewood. Families participated in workshops, children learned about sustainability, and friendships forged in the soil deepened connections that would ripple through generations. When the first harvest festival unfolded, it wasn't merely a celebration of fruits and vegetables. It embodied the victory of vulnerability, resilience, and community spirit. From the laughter of children participating in garden games to the adults exchanging dishes made from their own produce, it was a successful culmination of love, effort, and passion. As she stood before her gathered neighbors, Sarah reflected on her journey. She transformed from a woman weighed down by burdens to one who had embraced her roots, planting hope in the hearts of others. There was newfound confidence in her voice as she shared her vision, calling for continued unity and engagement. The applause that followed was not about her efforts alone. It was recognition of everyone who dared plant seeds of change together. In that moment, she caught a glimpse of Mark's nod of acknowledgement, a silent testament of respect earned through her dedication. Sarah had reached the culmination of her growth. She had built more than a garden, she had woven a community's narrative, forging an indelible mark that would forever echo through the heritage of Maplewood. Her journey culminated not just in a successful project but in profound personal transformation. Sarah had conquered her doubts and emerged as a beacon for resilience, proving that beyond every challenge lay an opportunity for growth. Now the stakes stood higher than they ever had. She was not merely a woman reclaiming her family's legacy. She was Sarah, a community leader bringing the past into a vibrant future. You need to subscribe now to catch these exclusive transformative stories that inspire real change. Leave a like now to fuel the motivation behind this journey. Your support matters. I want to hear from you. Comment below to share your reflections, theories about Sarah's journey, or your own stories of transformation. Don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who seek motivation and understand the power of reclaiming their narrative.